All right, so this is what we call the Afterburn. If you have a comment, question, or anything to do with today's teaching, you're welcome to come on up to the podium here. If you're online, you're welcome to start typing in, and we'll read that over the microphone as we get over to the live stream questions. All right, Simon, you're headed this way. Looks like you want to get us started. That'll be fine. You said this is your last Shabbat here, so you got to get your questions in.
I'm going to make the most of it. 2 notes are right.
It's only your last Shabbat for a while.
Exactly.
You'll be back.
We will. My first note was just a summary of what you were putting together there, which is effective communication is to shift the delivery of information to the level of the hearer without compromising the standards of the speaker.
Correct. That's very well said.
And then my other one was just a note on the submission side of things. And I think to wrap up everything you were teaching there is that submission is our biggest struggle. And I mean outside of the marriage, because it's normally where it's brought up. But for any athlete, they need to submit to a coach. They need mentoring. Anybody in business, you get there way faster if you have mentors and coaches. It's a principle that exists. It's not just a marriage thing. It's not just a Torah thing, but it applies across the board. And I think we often miss that connection that we need mentoring. We need to submit to somebody who is above us because it's the fastest way for us to grow.
Amen. Amen. And look, you can see that in all the sports. You go look at any, we'll call it dynasties, right? Any sports dynasties where like a team won for so many years in a row or they dominated under a coach. As soon as that coach wasn't there anymore, the domination dwindled quickly. Okay, maybe continued for a very short little bit, but dwindled because the coach makes now you need the athletes too. Okay, you need the athletes too. But you know what? You can go back and look at, for example, I'm a football guy. I can tell you about the 72 Dolphins that went undefeated. They had a defense that was called a no-name defense because they had no superstars. At least at the time. A bunch of them are in the Hall of Fame right now. But at the time, they didn't have the superstars that we see in a lot of teams today. But a lot of teams with the big superstars are not winning everything. Because a lot of times the superstars can't submit under an authority of a coach and then learn how to work as a team. And that's a big, big part of the problem. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Appreciate that, okay? Look, also, for those of you that are out there, we do have this challenge from time to time. We had somebody here recently that thought he was something or somebody, and that's fine. If you are, how do I want to explain this? Everybody needs to be covered, okay? However, then you're going to say, but what about you, Rabbi? Or somebody, eventually you get to a person at the top who's covered directly. But we can't all claim that. So what I would say is this, if you are covered directly, it's going to be very hard for you to be part of something where there's already a leadership there. You should be doing something on your own or figure out how to come under that covering. This is the only way it can work. Look, why did Lavan split from Avraham? Because he decided he didn't want to be under that covering. He believed he had his own, individual anointing, whatever, the decision to be independent, etc. So then he needed to move on. So I don't have a problem with, people having certain insights or this or that or whatever. They're going to come to the congregation. We get that on a regular basis. But are you going to come under the structure or are you going to be an independent inside of the structure? And Paul's basically saying that doesn't work in his letters. Hopefully we can see that there as well. Because he says, look, you got Barnabas and you got Apollos, you got this and that, but there still has to be a cohesive structure. Otherwise you have confusion, you have chaos. You got division. And so that's all well and good that we see that there, but do we understand how that plays out here today as well? And that's just something that needs to come up because we do have some people that, we had a guy recently came here and told me he was Elijah. I didn't think he was, but he thought he was. All right, fine. Are you going to be able to work with me? Or are you going to need to be some independent here at the same time? He decided to be more independent, and so he's no longer here. Okay? And I have no problem. Maybe I'm not really the big anointed or whatever's out there. Maybe you are. Fine, go out there and be that. But don't be here disruptively because that's not fair to anybody. Go start your channel and start your congregation. Do whatever it is you think you're supposed to do because you say you're covered directly. That's fine. I see very few people in here that are covered directly, meaning by the Almighty directly. Everybody else is covered by somebody. Everybody. Even the kings were covered by the prophets. The prophets were higher. Hopefully you understood that, right? I mean, who was more authority, Nathan or David? Natan, right? Okay. Saul or Samuel? Okay. So just kind of keep that in mind, okay, but then the prophet was anointed directly. But then it's challenging if people want to claim to be something. Well, don't worry about what they claim. You have to observe and discern. Doesn't matter what they claim. All right, Janet.
Thank you, Rabbi. I just appreciate the Father for giving us you, because not just you're really good with teaching us the Torah, but also there's so much that you bring into the table with the life coaching and many other areas like are not necessarily Torah walk, but it's definitely part of what we deal with in life, like parenting and marriage and many other finances and all that. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the teaching today as well. I was writing as quickly as I could, so I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Surprise, right? Okay. So when you were talking about, I don't know how to say that word, Melchizedekian priest versus the Levitical.
Melchizedek.
Yeah. There's two types of priesthood. So you said that when there was a temple, so the Levitical priests were supposed to receive the tithe, right? But before the temple, the Melchizedek were getting the tithe.
Correct.
So my question was, so when the temple was gone, the Levitical priests, what happened? You know, because right now we don't.
It's not, again, clear. There's no real written stuff in Scripture. You'd have to go into history. You'd have to look and see what happened as the siege of Jerusalem plays out, probably happening that's when the book of Hebrews is being written, during that siege. And so that's where the case is being made that there's still going to be a priesthood to deal with, even though the temple will go away and the Levites are not going to be doing their thing. All right? And by the way, just to be clear, because this is something that also gets out there, I have no belief whatsoever that we're all going to be Melchizedekian priests, okay? Because the priesthood is for just the priesthood. There's only a percentage of people needed to do those roles, okay? It's not, one priest can handle a lot of people, all right? So you see that with the Levites, okay? Levites, one tribe, the other 11 were being served by the one tribe, okay? So it's not my belief that means that's what we all end up doing, here, and now. But I believe that there are those that are doing the Ephesians 4:11 stuff that are walking in that sort of serving role, okay? To me, a priest is one who serves. Now, the Levitical one served in the temple. They also served in the judicial system. Now, there's no temple, and there's no cohesive nation for them to be in the judicial system, a Torah-based. I mean, there is an Israel, but it's not the Torah-based scriptural Israel, okay? Now, we do know that Ezekiel writes about another temple to come, and that temple will have, guess what? Levites in it. And they will be, again, doing temple service. And so all of that will fall back into place. I believe, it doesn't say it, but I believe that with Moshe and Aaron, you actually see both priesthoods working concurrently, okay, as the development and the shift to the Levitical starts to happen. Okay, that's just my belief, okay? Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, Rabbi, thank you. My other question was about when we're reading over verse 10, right? The sowing of spiritual seed, and somehow you start connecting it with our natures that we can.
That was verse 11.
Verse 11, verse 11. We're talking about fear, doubt, laziness, that could be part of why you're where you are in terms of, financials or whatever. And my question was, can you actually have a victim nature, which is, I think, a lot of fear, I guess. And then the question really is, can you change your nature if you end up becoming, a fearful or an angry person, or, can you expand on that?
Okay, we need to understand, absolutely, none of this works if you can't change your nature. Because we're supposed to become Yeshua-like. That's a change in our nature. And by the way, that change of nature can go positive or negative. You can get worse or you can get better. You can elevate or you can go down, all right? So you can go from someone who was fairly positive to having life maybe beat on you a little bit, and you start becoming more the victim mentality, and the next thing you know, your nature starts getting fearful and doubting and everything else. That can happen. And then you're going to need help, counsel, guidance, therapy, whatever, to understand what happened and how you ended up where you are so that you can fix it and reverse that and go back in the right direction, going up instead of down in terms of, now I'm not talking about like heaven or hell, I'm saying just like if you think about you're starting at 0 and going up to 100 is Yeshua, okay, and going all the way down to negative 100 is whatever worst thing you can imagine, you can end up in fear and doubt, which is below 0, that's in the negative. Or you can go into the positive, confidence, trust, belief, faith, and you start moving up the scale, all right? But your nature, when you habitually spend time in something, the more time you spend in trust, the more your nature becomes trusting. The more time you spend in fear, the more your nature becomes fearful. And so having it happen occasionally doesn't make it your nature. However, if you don't get a hold of it, it can become your nature, okay? Have you ever met anybody just bitter and angry all the time? That's now their nature. I'm not saying somebody that can lose their temper. Anybody can lose their temper. But you've been with them at other times where they're just happy-go-lucky and they're fine, and then sometimes they lose their temper. Other people, they're just looking like they're sucking on a pickle all the time. And they're just like, basically the stereotypical crotchety old person who's just going around going, life just is not a bowl of cherries, all right, whatever. I mean, and they're just not happy about anything. They're nasty about everything because they're miserable, and it's now their nature, okay? So yes, your nature can change. It needs to change, but it won't change unless you want it to. You have to choose. Okay? Now some of you are like, well, I didn't want to be all bitter and angry. Well, you did. Not in a conscious way, like that's what you wanted, but you didn't stop it. Okay? Because if you really didn't want it bad enough, you wouldn't have let it happen. But you let it happen. But it was done to me. Well, but you still could have chosen to react to it differently. It would have been hard, challenging, but you still have choice. No matter what a person threatens you with, you don't have to do anything. You could always just let whatever the threat happen. But they made me do this. No, how'd they make you do it? Because they threatened me. Like my boss wanted me to come in Saturday, and he made me work on Saturday. Well, how'd he do that? Because he said if I didn't, he'd take my job. He'd fire me. Well, you could have been fired. You weren't made to do anything. You chose to give in to the fear of being fired. And the fear that if you get fired, you wouldn't find at least as good a job, if not a better job. So you gave in to a fear. All right? Nobody can make you do anything. The Father gives you all these opportunities. He doesn't try to make you do anything. He lets you have the choices. Same thing with your nature. You choose. If you're a victim mentality, broken, bitter, whatever, you allowed that to happen. I'm not saying other people didn't help it along, but you allowed it to happen, okay? If you can own that, you could also understand that you could fix it. See, as long as you believe everything came from outside, you can't fix it. It was done to you, you can't fix it. But if you understand that at least some part of you allowed it to happen, I don't mean allowed them to do whatever they did, allowed you to feel what you felt about it. Let's separate the two. Okay, the meaning you gave to the thing that happened, okay? That's what made you what you are. Now that meaning, somebody else may have given you that thought, a mother, a parent, or somebody said, well, that's because you're just a loser. That's just because, well, you don't have to receive that, okay? Now, you may have received it when you were so vulnerable that you didn't feel you had a choice. Now you know you have a choice. You can choose to think of it differently, feel differently, and discern things and label yourself differently. Okay? It's like the lady that I said used to be in the congregation many years ago. She was in her 70s. She had a family member abuse her when she was like 4 or 5 years old. Nothing ever again happened to her whole life that was like that. That was the one time. And yet she still was in that victim place at 70 plus years old. And I used to go back and forth with her all the time, trying to help her get out of that and grow past that. And at one point I said, look, your problem is you've never dealt with this thing. What are you talking about? I had therapy and I was on medication. No, you didn't actually deal with it in here. You tried to put Band-Aids on it. Because you still were bought into whatever mindset you locked in at that age. Instead of realizing you can change that nature. You don't have to be a victim anymore. Because I asked her, I said, has that ever happened to you again after that? No. So you've spent the next 70 years fairly safe. But she's still afraid every day. Because she never realized that that thing was a one-time thing or whatever it was. And some of you had more than one-time thing, but it was at a particular age when you're particularly vulnerable with certain situation, which you're not in anymore. Don't let that, it ruined your life up to this point. Okay, I'll give you that maybe. If that's what you want to claim, that's fine. Don't let it ruin any more. Because if you do, that's on you. Because it's not happening now. You can choose. I don't know how to get there. Fine, get counsel, get help. We can help you get there. I can help you, Janet can help you. There's other people, there are people that can help you get there. But you have to move up and forward if we're going to become Yeshua-like. Okay? Look at what happened to him. And he's sitting at the right hand giving us all encouragement when he was falsely accused, beaten, scourged, skin ripped off of him, nailed to a stake, spit on, speared. I mean, come on, okay? And he's up there still loving everybody. Because he wasn't going to be the victim. He said what? He said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. They don't understand what they're doing. You should be able to do that for everybody who did anything horrible to you. Because they did what they did because they didn't understand. If they did, they wouldn't have done it. But they did only what they understood out of their pain, out of what was done to them and whatever else was going on. So you could say, Father, forgive them. If Yeshua could say for what happened to him, certainly you could do whatever happened to you. Consider that. All right, Janet.
This is just great. I mean, you just gave me so much right now. Everybody, I'm sure, received something from that. It was really good. When you were talking about you have to grow up, right? I was thinking about the grumbling, the whining, complaining, and I thought, oh my gosh, they're acting like, or it's just like a childish behavior, right? A child is gonna whine, complain, and all that. Then I thought, I need to grow up. And then I thought, oh my gosh, do I actually do that with my husband? No, don't answer that. but really, I mean, it's like a grow up. Like I need to grow up, right? And just not do this because that's not who I want to be. I want to be like Messiah. So thank you, Rabbi. Appreciate
Amen. Look, we get a lot of grumbling on the phone here, in person here, a lot of whining, a lot of, and you know, it's okay as long as you're going to recognize at some point that's not where you need to stay. We're not judging you for being there. We're getting a little frustrated with some of you who seem to not want to change and not want to leave. You're going around that mountain over and over again. You don't want to go away from that mountain. You don't want to, you've been around it long enough. At some point, you need to let that all go and start to move up. I do that class called Level Up. I want you to just think about the concept, though. This is a lot of levels up to become Yeshua. From wherever you are, you're very much not anywhere near his level at this point, right? So you have to keep moving up. And if you're not going to do that, you're not going to get there. And don't be in this Christian mindset that somehow you got your golden ticket because you believe he exists or you had your altar call, whatever. That's just not the way it works. That's just a pipe dream. Forget about that. You have to be working on becoming like him. Which means you have to stop being the whiny, thumb-sucking, diapered you, okay? Some of you think that's all offensive. You're only going to think it's offensive if it's you. If you're not the one with the thumb in your mouth, you're not going to be offended by that. I'm serious, right? Because if you're not the one with your thumb in your mouth, you already recognize that other people have that and they're annoying you too. It's really annoying and irritating to have to deal with adults who are still sitting around acting like they're 10 or younger. Because you shouldn't be doing that anymore. Now, don't be offended by what I just said. If it's you, come and get help figuring out how to grow up and fix it. Okay? Or you can just feel victimized and then just stay that way. And then you'll blame me that the reason you stayed that way is because I insulted you in front of everybody on the microphone. Well, that's not going to hurt me. Certainly not going to help you, though. You are on your own journey, and your journey has got to be from what you are into what he is. It's not going to be like he's going to snap his fingers, wave his magic hand or something else, and then all of a sudden you're him. Okay? In 1 John, we've read this so many times. I'm going to read it to you again. All right? In 1 John 3:2, it says, "Beloved ones, now we are children of Elohim, and it has not yet been revealed what we shall be. But we know that when he's revealed, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is." That is not going to happen until you actually have already become like him before he changes you physically to be like him. Do you understand what I'm trying to say here? He says it will be revealed because when we see him, we will be like him. In other words, once we're changed from this human, fleshly, corruptible into the incorruptible, we'll get it because we'll be able to see him as he is. But you're not getting it until you're already like him. You want to be changed physically to be like him into the incorruptible? That ain't happening unless you got the inside already fixed. You're going to have to work on that. You have to become like him before he makes you actually like him. Because the part he's going to do is the part that changes the thing that houses you, right? This physical body is what houses you right now. You're going to be given a different type of body that will house you, that's incorruptible, that's immortal, that's forever. But he's not going to put the dysfunctional you in that body. You need to fix that. I know some of you are all depressed now because of that. No, you can do this. He didn't call you because you can't. It's going to be work. Oh my gosh, yeah, it's going to be a lot of work. You guys think, oh, Rabbi, but you've done so much. Oh, I'm not even close to what I need to be. Okay, I got a long way to go. We all got a long way to go. But you got to take those first steps. And it starts by realizing you need to go that direction and you need to get help doing it. Or you could just be like the ones who think, well, no, I just work directly with the Spirit and the Father. And well, how's that been working for you all this time? You getting where you need to go all by yourself? You know, you keep hearing the testimonies of people that have been getting help and you can hear how much that's helping them. You might want to give it a try. By the way, that's the way he designed it. Just throwing that out there. All right, Sarah Beth.
Okay, I had 2 questions, but thank you, Janet. Now I only have 1.
There you go.
And that was a very, very useful answer. Thank you. I plan on going home and chewing on that for a while. Second question, like I had like the voices from the past, the Christian, like playing in my head. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Like, I think I know the answer, but I'd like to, make sure I know how to defeat that. So when they make, they talk about, Yeshua's disciples were the ones that were sent out, not all of the Christians that weren't trained.
Correct.
But like their logic, which I already know is very faulty, would be that, the disciples made disciples, those disciples were then supposed to go and make disciples. And it's supposed to be this chain effect, which is what they would use as license to why they do it today. But they're not receiving the same level of training, correct?
Okay, that part's correct, but I think your premise still has some things that need to be tweaked. Okay, what has happened is in Matthew, when Yeshua sends out those he trained, which is the last part, which is correct, he said they didn't have the level of training. He sent out those that were trained to be sent out. Christianity has decided that if you believe that that's all the training you need. That's the difference, okay? See, they were sent out to make disciples who then also could do what they're doing because they're trained. And the training didn't just come to the fact that, did the 12 only know that he was Messiah? They didn't even figure that out for a good little while when they were first with him. He trained them to do what they did over a period of time, intensely, 1 on 12, or 1 on 3, or 1 on 1 sometimes, depending on who he's working with. But they were every day together training. And you're going to feel like, oh, I came to realize Messiah is Messiah, so now I got to go out there and preach that to everybody? You haven't been trained. Oh, I went through Bible school. You haven't been trained. Because it takes someone who's already in that position to train you, not just someone who has some scholarly credentials and thinks they can teach you in a seminary somewhere or something, okay? So no, you're correct about the last part, but you have to understand the reason they have the license is because they think all that you have to do now is just believe. They think that's the key component. You believe he's a Messiah? Good, now you're trained. No, you came to an understanding of something. You haven't been trained at all. Okay? All right, Lisa.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I want to say something to you because when Yahweh popped my bubble and I started looking for him and I got into the mainstream Christianity and wasted a lot of money, and maybe not wasted because it still brought me here to you, but the partnership, that hype, that if you're partnering with these different ministries, but it was just really more selling another marketing ploy, and you don't do that. And that's one of the things that really drew me to you was how honest you are and your integrity, and I just really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And by the way, there's another way of looking at this partnering thing would be just like what Sarah Beth brought up, which is instead of me having the burden of going out and preaching the gospel or whatever Christians might have thought, I'll partner with you so I get vicariously the same credit because you're doing the work, but I'm now partnering so I get credit for it too. That's part of their mindset, is what's being sold to them. Hey, partner with us so that way you don't have to do what we're doing, but you get credit for it because you sent some money. If you're actually sent, you're expected to be the one that actually does that work. But he doesn't expect everybody to do that work. You all have your own work to do. Some of it is being somebody's best friend and being there for somebody who needs you to be there. It's not this part of the work. It's about the community forming and the body coming together and loving on each other and doing that work. You know, the other day we had somebody that wasn't feeling so great, and we had somebody that was able to take them to the emergency room because they happened to also have nurse qualifications, and that was a blessing to that person. That person, they didn't need a rabbi right that second. It was much more helpful to have someone who has a nurse background and was able to take them in a car and drive them to the hospital. And so we all have our roles to play, and those moments will come up where that role gets played and you get to do it very nicely. Okay? But this partnering thing, I think, is just one of the things saying, okay, you can sit back in your house, just write a check, and then you're actually like you're doing the work. Well, that's not true. That's not true. It's not real. All right, Lisa.
So my question is on 1 Corinthians 9:21. It seems to me like what Shaul is saying is that not being without the Torah toward Elohim, I think what he's saying, and tell me if this is right or not, that he is observing Torah, he continues to observe Torah, but he is working with the people that aren't observing Torah and the people that are observing Torah to help them to do it like Yeshua Messiah wants them to do it. So, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but...
That's okay. Nobody truly understands what Paul's trying to say here anyway. Okay, because look, we have in this translation that I'm using, we've got hyphens that weren't in the Greek, and we've got all kinds of other punctuation that's not in the Greek, and Paul just likes to use these jumbled word salads at times that, what is he saying? All right? So yeah, we could spin this to any which way we want to spin this. But when I look at the whole theme of these couple of verses, he's saying, I was able to adapt to where people were. That's what I could get into it. Without getting into well, what does it say here about being under this Torah? What's the Torah of Messiah? Well, I could spin it this way. I could say, to those without Torah, as without Torah, not that I was being without the Torah toward Elohim, but I was under the instruction. Remember, Torah means instruction of Messiah, which was go reach everybody. Which means I have to then understand who I'm talking to and adjust to them and adapt to them. Adjust in how I approach them, not adjust that I'm going to behave like them. All right? So if I walk into a person who's trying to figure out Messiah and the truth of things, and they're going to then serve me, shellfish or pork or lobster or some other thing, I'm not just going to eat that because they don't know better. Okay? But I'm going to, when I talk to them, understand I can't get into the depth of kashrut with them when they don't even have any idea what that is. Okay? I have to start where they're at and how I approach them to get them to where they need to be. Okay? So for example, if I have a Jew, let me rephrase that, an actively Torah observant Jew, because I grew up in a community full of non-actively Torah observant Jews, right? Who were just culturally Jews. But let's say you have a Torah observant Jew on any level of Torah observance, all the way to full-blown Talmudic Orthodox, or just on any level, they come in to believe in Messiah. I don't have to then let them know you can't eat pork. I don't have to let them know what a holy day is. I don't have to let them, in other words, they already know all of that. So I'm going to start at a different place in their education in integrating now Messiah into what they already know. But if I get somebody who comes out of the world who had no background in any of this stuff, never saw a Bible in their life, there's a lot of people, believe it or not, like that, I have to start in a whole different place to bring them up to some very basic understandings. That's what Paul's trying to say here. All right? Because they may look at him going, well, I see when you talk to the Jewish community, you don't sound like when you talk to us. It's because they already know certain things you don't know yet. And so I can talk to them in a different way than I can talk to you. There are some of you that have been with me a long time. If we have private conversations, sometimes I can talk to you in a whole different way than I talk to when you hear from the microphone, simply because I know where you're at and what you can handle. And so I expect you to already know certain things that when we talk, I don't have to rehash all that. I know you already got that. I think that's simplicity of what he's really trying to say there, okay? Without getting into each one of the items, let's look at what the whole thing is trying to say. It's either saying he's a charlatan chameleon that just pretended to be whatever to try to snow people over into this belief thing, or he's saying, I learned that not everybody's at the same spot. I have to learn and adapt to where they are when I talk to them. That made more sense to me. That's the interpretation I'm going to run with, okay? All right, live stream. And we left you guys a good little bit of chunk of time, so that's good.
Okay, from Shakara Arnold, will we ever learn our lesson, or are we just stuck being stupid? We're constantly shown that Yahweh will take care of us if we obey, yet we keep doing dumb stuff. Why?
All right. So first part of the question, will we ever learn our lesson? That's in your hands. Okay? Yahweh's asking the same question. I mean, he already knows what you've done, but he's looking at you like, are you ever going to learn your lesson? You see that over there in the scripture. He's looking at him like, you guys going to ever get this? All right? He says, we're constantly shown that Yahweh will take care of us if we obey, yet we keep doing dumb stuff. Why? Well, let's kind of define dumb stuff. The dumb stuff is when you decide you want, and he said no, or you don't want, and he said to do. That's where the dumb stuff always comes down to a you preference. I don't like, I don't want, I like, I want, and it doesn't line up with him. So we do either we trust and obey, or we don't. It's based on how we feel about those emotional things. How we see things and how the emotion gets attached to it. That's why we still do dumb stuff, because we still want things that he says no. That's really the ultimate sort of simplicity of it, all right? So will we ever learn the lesson? At some point when we realize we have to say no to us and yes to him, always, okay? Now you don't have to say no to everything for you, because a lot of things that you want that he's fine with. But when it comes to the misaligned part, he said and you don't want to deal with what he said, at some point you got to fix that. and start saying no to you, yes to him. Or, when I say no to you, that means sometimes it's you don't want to do it, but you have to say yes because he says, well, you got to do it anyway. Sometimes it's you want it, and he already said, no, but you want it. And you're going to keep losing that battle until you start recognizing, as you said in the last part, he constantly does take care of you when you obey. When is that going to make a difference enough for you to finally just obey most of the time? By most, I mean we're not perfect, but you're going to make that effort to obey the vast majority of the time. All right? And when I say that, I'm not giving you permission to not obey sometimes. I'm saying is those will be those failing moments where you had a weakness that you're still struggling with, that you're going to repent hard about it, and you're going to really try to make the effort not to have that problem again. But yeah, I'm wondering all the time, with me, with everybody, there's things we struggle with. And by the way, you don't struggle with 75 different things. It's the same 3 or 4 or 5 things you always struggle with. The rest of it's a piece of cake. And you're wondering sometimes, I don't know why you struggle with this thing, because it's not your issue. So you don't struggle with it. But then they wonder why you struggle with yours, because they don't struggle with it. Okay? There are some people that have some serious struggles eating. They just really loved whatever unclean thing they loved. And some of you had no issue whatsoever giving up whatever you had to give up because you could care less. Even if you really liked it, it wasn't that important to you. So you don't struggle, but they do. Okay? Some of you had no issue switching over to the Sabbath from Sunday. Some of you had no issue giving up Christmas and Easter. Some people really struggle with these things. Some of you had no issue giving up your job if you had to and changing your jobs because Saturday became the problem. Others, you really struggle with this. Don't judge those that are struggling. And don't be all cocky about the fact that you don't. You do struggle. Focus on whatever it is you struggle with. Okay? Be happy that you don't struggle with some things that other people do. That's great. But you still struggle. Focus on your issues. All right? Everybody's got to walk out their own salvation. Walk out yours. Okay? I've often said the statement, I've never had a problem with alcohol. I wasn't an alcoholic. I'm not judging anybody that is. Okay, some of you that are alcoholics probably never struggle with some of the things I struggle with. Your struggles are yours, mine are mine. And Hasatan never tempts me with things that are not issues for me. He tempts me with the things that are issues for me. And the same thing with you. Okay? So don't feel better or worse about whatever you're struggling with, or that you don't struggle with something somebody else does. And don't feel worse, like say maybe you do have an alcohol problem or a drug problem or some other problem that other people don't have. Lots of people still have your problem. It doesn't matter how many have it or don't have it. It's your problem. You deal with it. Don't feel judged and don't judge. Your problem is your problem, whatever it is. Own it, deal with it. It's part of your growth into whatever you're supposed to, so that you can ultimately become him. Okay? Live stream.
All right, from Ministria Zeri Emesius. Rabbi, thank you for the teaching. How can you approach ex-congregants now that don't submit to me, have left because of the Torah shift in teaching, but they still come around for other needs like financial needs?
Okay. How can you approach ex-congregants that now don't submit to you? Okay, I don't know what this ministry would then be. Okay, if you have a ministry, that wasn't keeping Torah, which it sounds like this is what we're dealing with here, and then when you do make the shift over to Torah submission and Torah observance, you might lose some people over that, okay? I think what your problem is defining what a congregation member relationship is, okay? Elder and I have been working on it. I haven't put it out yet because, quite frankly, I got distracted and haven't really worked on it a little bit. But we wanted to put out, and hopefully at some point we'll put out, a proper expectations document where it's clear in it what we expect from you and what you can expect from us. But I will not financially help anybody that's not part of the congregation, because my obligation is to the congregation first. That doesn't mean we would never help anybody outside, has an urgent need of something. We might help a disaster relief or something like that. I'm saying is if you're a former congregant member, but you don't want to actually be a congregant member, why would I help you anymore? In other words, you've chosen to go somewhere else, then go get your help somewhere else. Okay, you're not going to have your cake and eat it, so to speak, even though I know you don't need cake necessarily. Okay? That's not the way this works. We help a lot of people. But once they're ex-members, we don't help them anymore. Not because we're being mean, but because they have moved on. And if you moved on, move on. Okay? Don't try to have this sort of weird, I'm going to have everything only on my own terms. So I'm not going to come anymore because I don't like what you did, but I want you to help me. No, I don't think so. Not going to do that. All right? If you still have financial need and other things, go find another ministry you do align with. Maybe they'll help you. Okay? Because then you're using us. We're not here to be used. We're here to be useful to those that are apart. Okay? And by the way, if you have a ministry that you moved over to Torah Observance, and I don't necessarily know who you are, then why have you not called us for help in how to handle that switch? I mean, if you're watching this and you want to be a part of m.t.o.i and get the covering and help and the guidance, give us a call. We work with this kind of stuff all the time. All right? Now, this could be one of the ones we are already working with that just doesn't have a name on it. So I don't know who this is. But I'm just saying if you're one of the people we already work with, call us. If you're not, call us. All right? And we'll see what we can do. If you're out of the country, email us and we'll set it up so we can talk to you on WhatsApp. Okay? And then we can get it that way. All right, next.
All right, from Alden Vidal, Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi. What would be the signs that a person can observe if he has the gift or anointing to possibly become a Melchizedekian priest and teaching Torah?
Okay, Alden is somebody I'm working with. All right, Alden's over in the Philippines. Okay, so Alden, in Scripture, what I see is that anointed, appointeds, anoint and appoint. All right? So, as far as looking for the signs that a person has the gift, I need to be able to see what you're doing, which we've already talked about, and have you record things that you're doing and that kind of thing, okay? As far as the teaching of the Torah, it's something that you have to have someone already anointed, recognize, and then certify, so to speak, okay? And that's what we see in Scripture. And so we'll keep an eye on you. And we've got high hopes for you. We're really excited about the moves that you've made to move your group towards what we do here at m.t.o.i, and that's fantastic, okay? All right, next.
From Edwin and Carmen, this is a two-part. When it comes to submitting to a financial coach, we were working in an MLM for 4 years before, and we were submitted under that leadership and got led into the worst hardship, but now we're doing a different business, and it's been so hard to be coachable again under a new mentor. How can we fix this so we can stop kicking ourselves in the teeth? Thank you.
Well, probably it would help if you got some financial advice from somebody who doesn't take money from you. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that all financial advisors who do charge are not good. A lot of them are very good. But you may want to at least vet them through somebody that's not charging you. Like, I don't know, Elder and I are pretty financial savvy. We coach a lot of people in this stuff. And so certainly you can run by us the group that you're spending money on and whether we feel that they're legitimate and that kind of thing. Apparently the first group wasn't very legitimate, and so you got taken for a ride, and now you're having trouble to trust. But realize that you were taken for a ride because you probably didn't do the due diligence necessary before you got in this financial MLM that you were in. First of all, I don't think that there's probably any reason to ever be in a financial MLM. That probably doesn't make any sense to me. There's too much going on there that doesn't, that lends itself too much to being a problem, okay? I don't mind paying for good financial advice, and sometimes you have to pay for good financial advice. I'm working with some accounting people that I'm working with right now. They're not cheap. I think they're very good, though, and they're going to help me with the accounting stuff that I need to do. But I would be very careful, and if you don't know how to vet these things out, then get help. But once you do have somebody legitimate, you should be able to at least trust them and follow instruction if they're going to coach you, because that's what you're paying them to do. Okay? All right? Was there more?
We have one more. This is the last question from Greg Wallen. Rabbi, the race in 1 Corinthians 9:24, what we should look at as our competition, being we're in a race, metaphorically.
All right, Greg, so this is a very simple thing. The only competition you have is you. I mean, that should be a simple answer for everybody, okay? Don't look at anybody else as your competition, because according to the way Paul is trying to help you understand this, that everybody who runs a race and runs it all the way to the end does win. So it's not a competition, it's a journey to an end. So in other words, if you're gonna run a marathon's roughly 26 miles or something like that, all right? You wanna finish the race. So I'm not picking like a short thing like, 100 meters or 200 meters. I'm saying this is a long race, all right? 26 miles, a long race. All right, well, he's saying don't quit. You gotta finish the race. You gotta run to win the race, okay? And so when you look for your competition, go right to the mirror and look at, you're competing against the old you as you're coming into becoming the new you, all right? And so that's just what we want to do. And since it is Greg, I'm gonna give him a little scratch here for Greg, okay, so. If you don't know what that's all about, go watch The Legend of the Coin. All right, anyway, it's in YouTube on our channel. But look, the whole thing is your journey is really about you becoming him. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. Compare yourself only to the old you. The more you're still like the old you gotta work a little harder. You're losing the fight. Okay, you're not winning the race. The more you're starting to look like Yeshua, the more you're winning the fight and winning the race, because you're becoming and changing and transforming into that image, okay, into that likeness. So let's stop judging other people and looking at other people. Some of you look down at other people, some of you look up enviously. So you're either judging and looking down, or you're enviously, jealously looking up. Stop that. Your journey's your journey. Don't be mad because somebody's 30 doing this and you're 65 and you're like, that's not fair, they started 30, I gotta have to. You're starting where he picked you to start. Don't get mad at him. He picked you when he picked you. He picked you in the health condition you're in. He picked you in the situation financially you're in. He absolutely, can we really agree to this finally? He knew exactly where you were when he popped your bubble in your life, in your relationships, in your money, in your health, in everything. He already knew where you were. So don't judge him. Could he have done it at a different point? Maybe. Would it have been better for you? Maybe not. Maybe that's why he waited, okay? Some of you wondering why he popped you so young. Well, he popped you when he popped. He said, now's the time for you to know who I am. He chose that point, okay? All right, but just, you guys really need to understand that. And I want you to really, truly embrace also that everything in it was written for you to say, oh, what those people went through is similar to what I'm going through. Those people that handle it well, I need to handle it well like they did. Or those people that handle it poorly, I need to not do what they did. It's there for you to learn from. Okay, the lessons are there that you need to learn from, okay? And I think that we can all benefit from that perspective shift, okay? We have to get that perspective shift. All right.